you for coming and joining us. Before I introduce our esteemed panelists, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors. So thank you, Dell, thank you, NVIDIA, thank you, Diversified. Awesome to support GALSNGEAR and all the things that we do. Sitting next to me, Laura Coover from Orbital Studios. Laura is a filmmaker, and I think it's interesting that Laura is both a filmmaker and an actor, because that means she really sees things literally from both sides of the camera, which is kind of cool because she also is involved in virtual production, which really is kind of a whole 360 scenario. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something
cool.
I've felt is that it's a lot like being in theater on a stage because you're like so immersed and like wrapped in the environment.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's definitely great to get both perspectives, and it always helps. So.
Cool. So thank you for joining us, Laura. And Catherine Craven, who is the Western Regional Manager at Ikegami Electronics USA. She's been in the industry for quite some time. She knows her stuff. Yes, I see you brought your fans. And, obviously Ikegami is a leading manufacturer of broadcast camera systems and many other things. In my career, I actually briefly operated an Ikegami camera for a show called Redskins Saturday Night. It's true, I was the second camera operator for a hot minute on that show. And that's probably one of many parts of my career where I learned that was not the job for me. But I did it anyway, so hauled around those Ikegamis. Make sure you use the mic.
Sure, thank you.
So thank you, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so we're here to talk about connecting the future. And so this is the perfect panel for this. So I want to ask, before we dive into some tech, I just want to ask you, what are you excited about here at NAB Show? So Laura?
I'm very excied for you all to see what Orbital Studios is showcasing in the Dell Technologies booth.
What booth number would that be, Laura?
SL4616.
Thank you.
And we're always very focused on refining our virtual production workflow to better support artists, and Dell Technologies plays a huge part in that. So we're hosting this demo in their booth. It's inspired by a project that we're working on called Lollipop Racing. Lollipop Racing is a new series from Fast and Furious creator David Ayer, and it's wild. It takes place in 10 major cities around the world with drivers recklessly racing extremely expensive automobiles. There's a gamification element so audiences can interact with the content, and so it's an incredibly massive scope, dynamic, dangerous, cost-prohibitive project, but with virtual production,
Sounds awesome. Sign me up.
It's cost-effective and safe. I do have a clip that I can share that shows a little behind the scenes next to the final.
Do you want to do that now or in a minute? Do you want to do it now?
You pick it. I mean, now, and I could talk.
Let's do it now.
Yeah,
let's show the clip.
And then I'll tell you a little more about the
The
demo.
Laura
and you can
Coover
come see
clip.
it.
Okay, can we give a little shout out? That was pretty cool.
So in the booth, we have a Porsche GT3 RS in the booth. You can sit in the booth in front of a virtual environment and get video of yourself shot on a red camera in racing. We send it to you right away, and it's just a cool way to interact with virtual production, and then you can get to know our team and our workflow and all the great tech that supports it.
I can't wait because I am a total car girl. So.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, I totally am. Yeah, awesome. We should not go down that tangent because then that would just take us out of this whole situation. But anyway, I'll be there. So, and what about you, Catherine? Tell me something that's exciting to you here at NAB
That
show.
is going to be a hard follow-up after that. That was incredible. Of course, NAB is always just an incredible experience to begin with. So I'm always excited about the opportunity to, of course, show our latest innovations, engage with our customers, and of course, spark those new collaborations. We have a full line of wonderful camera, 4K native, IP-capable camera systems and monitors, so it would be lovely to come on over to the North Hall and check out our wares. We don't have any cars that you can sit in, or virtual reality, but I'll show you some cool cameras. How about
Cool
that?
cameras is
Yeah.
good. Do you have some video you want to show now or later?
We can show it now,
Let's show
absolutely.
it now. Let's do some video.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us what camera we're looking at.
So we're looking at our flagship camera. This is a UHK X700. It is our top tier model. It is a 4K native sensor, IP capable, and it has high frame rates as well. It is our highest end offering and our flagship camera, and it's a beautiful camera.
So you're talking about IP, and I'm just curious. Talk about that trend in the industry, that move
Sure.
to IP,
Yeah.
and why it's so important that the cameras are all outfitted for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the shift in the broadcast and media industry to IP has been significant. And for Ikegami, who is a legacy camera company and who has a long history in leading camera technology, that really meant driving innovation for a IP-capable camera system, one that was seamless, one that was high quality, one that had NMOS compliancy, and also that was, of course, ST2110 capable. All
Right.
those things
Right.
that are the backbone for IP-based facilities, hybrid workflows, and of course, remote production with cloud integration. So I think the success of this transition really couldn't have come without our global industry alignment around IP workflows, because that wasn't the case at the beginning. We did not have a universal IP protocol.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what that did was that created a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of interoperability issues between manufacturers, and Ikegami certainly was not void of that. However, with the standardization of ST2110, along with other protocols such as NDI and SRT, that has really created seamlessness. It has created efficiency and scalability, and really has given all the elements that are needed in these modern production environments.
Yeah. Well, and just to follow up on that, not everybody is going to be able to have gigantic footprints. So some of what you're enabling is actual smaller footprint situations. And I'm going to follow up with you on that in just a moment, Laura. But just to finish that up, Catherine, what are some of the things that you're seeing, like replacing base stations and things like that? I mean, what are some of the coverage opportunities with this smaller footprint?
So our entire line of the new Unicam line, they are all supportive of IP. So we, from our bottom tier camera all the way up to our top tier, and we make that very easy for the client because it's a simple IP path. In addition, that gives a lot of the client they can really move at their own pace, right? So they can upscale at their own pace. So this year we released a new product called an IPX100, and that's an IP gateway, and it really takes the place of a traditional base station. And what that does is it offers a flexible, a scalable, high quality product that really just gives it IP forward technology. So in that realm, that's what we would see in more of a small scale, like REMI operation, remote production. That's really what we're going after for that product.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
And you know, that's something as a content creator myself I really appreciate, because I love all this technology, but I'm operating a small multi-platform production business. I can't buy all of that stuff, but I do need some of this smaller footprint
Right.
opportunity. So over to you, Laura, because you are also a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And tell me about sort of the influence of technology, the renovation, sort of reimagination of tech, and how that's influencing kind of the democratization of content.
Yeah, I mean, Orbital works with a lot of major brands in the industry. We just kicked off a series with Netflix, which is really exciting, and we love that work. But Orbital is founded by filmmakers. I'm a filmmaker. It's what we really love and care about. And we're doing everything that we can to get the word out that you do not need a bajillion dollars to use virtual production. So we're always trying to get the tech into the hands of our fellow filmmakers. So for example, we're co-producing a short film that is my favorite project that we've ever done at Orbital. It's really cool. It's based on a historical event that took place in Manhattan in 1939. So we shot it on film at Orbital Stages. Our partners at Row 2 Entertainment, which is a team of really talented VAD artists, created a pixel-perfect replica of Madison Square Garden in 1939 that matches existing archival footage of the event. So we shot the story on the virtual production stage. The director's going to integrate what we shot with archival footage to tell this story in a new way. So it's a really cool sort of merging of tradition and innovation, and it's an example of, I think that indie filmmakers are the ones who are going to really crack the tech open and really mine it for all of its potential in a way that big studios aren't.
Frankly, aren't.
Yeah. And then
no offense, we love you,
yeah,
studios.
we love Netflix. We love you. But you know, thinking also as an indie filmmaker about how cost prohibitive it would be to shoot in New York City with thousands of extras and costumes. Like we took 12 to 20 extras in period costumes and made them look like thousands of people.
Yes.
So yeah, it's an example of breaking down the barriers. And
you're speaking my language. You know, early in my career, I'll confess that I worked in this same space with archival images and some of the early digital in a little movie called Forrest Gump. So I was in the art department finding all those images of, you know, presidents shaking hands with someone the same height as Tom Hanks. That was me. And so the whole idea of bringing an archival scene to life and moving the extras around, which we did. We actually moved a little clump of extras around the entire reflecting pool to make that whole scene. So, you know, the old becomes new again, but with new technology, and it's so exciting because you can really do something entirely different.
And I think that for obvious reasons, virtual production has such a strong association to sci-fi and super sleek CGI and polish, and like this is so tactile and like gritty and grounded, and it's such a great contrast that I think that like continuing to like discover these new possibilities is really going to drive adoption and open up all the potential of the tech.
Cool. Now, let me just stick with you for one more second here, because there are also a lot of other uses for virtual. Obviously, previs being one of them, so kind of going back to kind of the Hollywood movie concept. But it's also helping to save money, right? Because pre-visualization allows us to figure out what the problems might be before we're on set with $1 bazillion burning in little piles of money on fire. So tell us about previs and how that's tying in.
I mean, so going back to Lollipop, Orbital worked very closely with Narwhal Studios, which is the VAD house. We were the stage team, and we worked in very tight integration throughout the pre-production process. And a big part of that was virtual scouting, and that was taking an Unreal environment that we're actually going to use to shoot on the stage and turning it into a virtual meeting space for the director, the DP, department heads, everybody to come and meet in the space and interact with the content and each other in real time. That sometimes involved a VR headset, so they're literally in the space. And then using a virtual camera, they can line up shots, block scenes, experiment with lenses, everything, get everything dialed in before they get on set. So it's just building a unified vision together in a way that is not segmented and linear, which is more of a traditional process.
Makes my type A personality as a director-producer really happy. So, Catherine, let me bring you back in, because now we're talking about production.
Yeah.
And I noticed in your clip that all your cameras support HDR and also have a global shutter. So let's talk about what does that mean in terms of production? Why is that important for workflows?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So all of our cameras are standardized with both HDR and global shutter. HDR is no longer a would be nice to have feature. It's an absolute necessity for sports, broadcast, and live production. So HDR is what really, it's a standard that extends the gamut range. It's a standard called Rec 2020, and it really just gives more immersive blacks, it gives brighter highlights, and just more depth, color quality as well. As far as I would, pardon me, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm so sorry about that. I was going to go next to high frame rate and then global shutter.
Yeah,
global
I was
shutter's
going to
my next
say,
topic.
I was just a little
I was moving
distracted
over.
because we're having some kind of tech problem here,
Yeah.
which just goes to the point we're talking about, like figuring everything out in advance, mapping it out, and maybe not kicking a cable. I don't know. Just saying. Go ahead.
So we have moved to an all global shutter alignment as well. For that technology being global shutter captures the image in one frame. Our traditional cameras would be a rolling shutter where it would capture line by line. What we were finding was that we were getting distortions in the images, rolling shutter lines. It could be from a number of things, but we found the most problem to be with LED panels. That was always an issue. You would show up to an event site or a camera shootout and you never not quite knew what you were going to show up to. So having a roller shutter camera was always a bit of a question mark. How is that going to react? I had certainly many fine days with it, and I have about 2 that I recall. They were quite bad, and it just happens. You just never know.
Right.
But certainly, it's certainly about camera image, but it's also about camera integrity, the image integrity, and global shutter has certainly brought that.
Interesting. I don't think that's turning it off. Okay. So let me ask you about, we're talking about connecting the future. Laura, let me go to you for a moment. Tell me, as you're out on the show floor, as you're working in Orbital, and maybe throw in a few words about our friends at Dell and NVIDIA, what are you seeing in the future? What are we moving towards? What do we need to be looking for? What do we need to be thinking about?
I think demographic balance, women behind the camera in every role in production, directors, DPs, trans, gender nonconforming, people of color, is so critical because of career opportunities for obvious reasons. That's important, but more so the people with a seat at the table are shaping the stories that will shape our cultural narratives that define everyone. So I think especially now that's so critical. And because virtual production is pulling more technical teams into the creative conversation, that balance has to extend on the tech side too when it comes to shaping these stories that have such a great impact. And there's more room at the table and more opportunity for different voices to contribute meaningfully. So leaders like Cindy Olivo at Dell Technologies, Amy DeLuise, and the whole GALSNGEAR team are really moving the needle by carving out space for, for different voices. And I think that advocacy is something I'm really excited to see continue and be a part of.
Thank you for saying that.
I mean
appreciate that. Well, and one of the things you talked about is, there are more seats at the table. This is something I talk about all the time because it is not a zero-sum game. We have positions literally coming out every week, every month. There are new everything you talk about in virtual production didn't exist 10 years ago, even 8 years ago or 6 years ago. There's so many new positions, so many new jobs. We literally can't fill them as an industry. We've got a huge boat of baby boomers who are retiring. One of whom's in our audience and who's been our sponsor at Signiant, so we appreciate that. We need new people to be taking those jobs and other new jobs. And one of the areas that I think is so exciting about the Ikegami cameras is, talk about tier 3 events. A lot of those are sports events. And a lot of those are women's sports events that are actually blowing up the needle in terms of revenue. Yeah. And we need more people covering those events. And they can't all be big shebang events. So tell us about, how the gear is supporting these kinds of productions.
Yeah, well, certainly the advancements in IP and remote broadcasting and AI certainly, along with some lower costs actually in 4K cameras and IP. We're seeing that as well, and that has certainly made sports broadcasting more inclusive of women in smaller leagues, women's sports in smaller leagues. But it's really the REMI production and the cloud production that has really made women's sports just completely a different
Exploded.
takeoff, right?
Totally.
And that's because they can have smaller crews, like you were saying.
right.
They can have a lower budget, and it's more game coverage. So with these new areas where they can do these productions, smaller productions, smaller footprints, we're seeing more game coverage. We're seeing more higher audiences, and I think that's what's really that's enabling, and it's showing us this movement of shift.
Right.
That there's going to be an equal playing field for women's sports.
Absolutely.
In production in sports, production sports, absolutely.
And actually, there's a lot of indie filmmakers who are in the sports arena because there's an enormous amount of what's called shoulder programming. Okay, so you've got like your main program, your main sports event, but there's the stuff that comes before, the sneak behind the scenes footage with the with the stars. The stars themselves are generating their own social media content, their own reels. It's endless content. Not everybody has a big crew for that. To some extent,
Right.
it's mobile production as well.
I could say that at Orbital, we have a gorgeous facility in downtown LA, but a huge part of our business, in fact, maybe most of it, is actually mobile production, where we're lean and agile. We deploy stages all over town, all over the country. The Netflix show, we just shipped a bunch of panels across town, and they're spinning up a stage there for that show. And again, Dell Technologies is a huge part of supporting our ability to work fast and lean like that.
I'm going to use the term spinning up a stage because I just
Spin
think
it
that's
up.
cool.
Like that, yeah.
Spin it up, baby. I love that. And that's the thing. We are all having to be agile. We're all having to be
Right.
flexible. Everything that's on this show floor is about that, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
That's the trend of the future. So one thing I wanted to do was see if we had anybody who wanted to add something from the audience. Any questions out in the audience? I'm happy to cede my microphone.
I think a lot of folks who feel threatened if you're trying to expand the table.
Yeah, and well, that's what I was saying. There's so many new jobs now.
Like what?
In the workflow. Well, for example, in the DIT realm, right? First of all, we never used to have DITs. We had ACs who kept track of the reels of film back in the ancient times, of which I am somewhat a part from another century, literally. And now that we shoot with multiple cameras, they're not only DITs on set. There's a near set DIT, an offset DIT, an offset assistant DIT. That's 6 jobs that literally didn't exist before. So, there's jobs. I'm sure you can think of some. Give me some names of jobs that are new jobs.
Interns is a big thing for Orbital. We just launched an internship program, and one of our interns is actually right there. Say hi,
Oh,
Daniel.
wow. Intern.
But I just want to
Hey,
say
we
that
love interns.
yeah, there's just something you're investing in the student, obviously, investing in your own company, and then in the industry. And in my experience, at least initiating and kicking off an internship program is not a heavy lift, and it pays such a huge return on the investment.
That is a great point.
Yeah,
Can
you're
I
building-
ask a follow-up question about, do you have interns at Ikegami?
We do not, unfortunately.
Do you want to have some? Because
I think it would be
I think we can have some. We can
idea.
set you up with some GALSNGEAR interns.
Absolutely.
In fact, we have GALSNGEAR interns here today. Wave, Bella. Wave, Jalen in the back. Yay, GALSNGEAR interns. So, I think one of the questions that people have when they have interns is, how much work is it going to be for me to manage the interns? So what would you say to that?
So just starting small, we started with 1, and then we grew to 2, and then 3. But we have
Which is a 300% increase, so let's remember that.
But basically having a standing list of simple tasks that are well documented on how to execute, that they can always rotate to if they're not involved in something on the day. Having a clear reporting structure, so then if everybody's hands are full and they can't give something new or teach something, just say, hey, go work on this research project. Like, there's endless research and documentation. There's always stuff that's just there to do, and that the student will get value out of it. Just being in the building and meeting people and building a network, they're getting so much value. So I guess taking the pressure off of having to engage so heavily with them personally all the time is really helpful.
Great. I think we have another question.
Hi there. Oh, wow, that's loud. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Tell us who you are and where you hail from.
Sure. Hey, I'm Sarah Giroux. I'm a cinematographer in Chicago. I'm super excited to take the leadership conference as well on Tuesday.
Yay,
thank
GALSNGEAR
you.
Leadership Conference. We
Yes,
still
very
have a
great.
few seats left. You can
should
add it to your
absolutely
badge.
Sign up. My question is, do you do any integration or teachings through the unions as well, like 476 or 600?
Does Gals and Gear specifically?
Yes.
No, we have not.
Okay.
But we would love to do that.
Yeah, because
Tema, do you guys do that?
So.
Okay,
Yeah.
so over here, wave your hands.
Great.
Women in Media.
Yeah.
Tema is part of that.
That's great.
Go talk to them because they do. And this is the thing. Gals and Gear is like all about like we're all in this together, pushing the rock up the hill together. So like I don't have any issues with promoting other women's organizations. So talk to Tema. She's out on the West Coast. She knows all about that kind of stuff. And great question. Thank you for asking. Yes. Oh, Heather from Diversified in the awesome suit in the back. Go.
Way to call me out. I promised myself when I spoke on the mic I'd say something super smart and you all would be in wow, but that's probably not going to happen. First of all, I just want to say I'm super proud to sponsor you ladies up here. We need you. We need your voices. We need to hear you, and we need your minds. We can do everything anybody else can, so please don't ever stop. I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't plug Diversified's booth over there. You know, we're doing some amazing stuff with
Can you
Atlas
tell us
Orchestra.
what booth number it is, Heather?
Of course you're going to do that. That one? I think it's West
Sorry.
3741, I believe is what it
Okay.
actually is.
Look it up on your NAB
There's
app.
probably a nice big sign, right, Heather?
There is. It's
There's
just
a
that
nice big
circular one
sign.
over there.
There we go.
And I
Sorry.
love that you guys touched on women's sports because
Yes.
let's be honest, it is on fire right
on
now.
fire. I actually think the WNBA had the highest revenue share last year.
And I can actually tell you the WNBA had more women watching one of their games than any NBA game all year long.
In
and that's
history.
something
Yes,
super
that's
cool.
that is
Yeah, absolutely
absolutely true.
So
And that's great because that means all those girls who grew up playing sports are watching, but also guys and their dads
exactly.
and our husbands and spouses and partners are all watching. I
Yeah.
mean, because it's just great sports.
I promise you I'll be super quick when I say this. So when you guys are talking about encouraging the next level of women to come behind us and, you know, fill those gaps, I just wanted to say really quick, we're announcing a film festival. And the whole idea behind it is you need to film women in behind the scenes within your industry being amazing. It is open to anyone, men, women, 16 plus, and the idea is that we want to encourage people to enter. We are going to bring the winners to NAB New York. We're going to set them up with a bunch of training, and then we are also going to set them up with some sponsorship dollars in order to continue their education so that we can get you at a small, you know, at a lower level. We want you in this industry. We want your voices. We want your minds.
Absolutely.
And
And I know some filmmakers in this audience. I know who you are, so I'm expecting you to join in this. By the way, her booth is 3467. Thank you, Kimberly.
You're the best.
Gals and Gear, we're on it. And the other thing is we're going to be partying with Diversified in New York to celebrate those filmmakers. So watch for that information because this is our 10th anniversary year. So, and we are celebrating throughout the year. So we do have, I want to mention that we do have QR codes at all these booths that are sponsors that have supported us, like Signiant, like Diversified, like Dell, NVIDIA, and many more in every hall. So look for a Gals and Gear QR code. There are QR codes on your seats. Danilda in the back is holding up the QR codes. You can scan that and jump on the Tequity Quest. If you check in at those booths between now and Monday night, you can win some big prizes at our party on Monday night at Firefly. So I hope you're going to be at the party, but more to the point. When you see a booth that has a QR code with Gals and Gear, please thank these people, okay? Because they don't have to sponsor us, but they do. And we need to tell them that we appreciate them and we appreciate their support of our industry and the people in it. Because we don't want to be women in something, frankly. We are just filmmakers, artists, camera operators, production company owners, live events producers, whatever our gig is, that's what we want to be known as the experts in our field.
Absolutely. Very true.
All right, we've talked enough. We have like food, we have festive stuff back here, we have a bar. I think everybody deserves a happy hour. So I just want to thank all of you for coming out. I want to encourage you to go to galsngear.tv, GALSNGEAR.tv. Sign up, be part of our community, come on our Tequity Hub. When we're not at live events, we have We have interactive, very lively discussions and meetups every single month on technical and career topics. We have a beta testing program that we do with companies because there are frankly not enough women and people of color testing hardware and software in our industry, and we make sure that happens. We have a student program. Shout out to Danilda for guiding our students, and Amanda Sapp, who's here somewhere, is also one of our, thank you, Amanda, one of our leadership council members who really puts her arms around these young people and makes sure that they want to be in our industry and want to stay in our industry. And we have our leadership training program, which we can bring into companies. So we actually have a pretty extensive roster of fabulous educators on negotiation skills, building your brand as a leader, leading teams, and financial literacy. 4 things every person at any point of their career needs to be successful. So if you can spare the time for the Tuesday morning summit, you can still add it to your pass. And we hope we'll see you there and at many other Gals and Gear events here and around the world. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And thank you, Laura and Catherine.